Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, USA Global TV watchers and listeners. It is wonderful to be back with you here on our show, Talking Heads. And I am Mariska du Preez, your, talking head for today. And what will we be discussing? We will be looking at our self-awareness. So we started with our journey on self-awareness during our last show, and we are continuing on that journey today. Now, if you did miss the last show, be sure to go and catch it on YouTube, or you can find it on our USA Global TV and Radio website. There will also be a link where it's living on the World Wide Web. So, without further ado, what is it that we are going to look at specifically around self-awareness today? Is this thing or things, I don't know about you guys, but I have found multiples of it, and it is called personality assessments. Yes, I'm sure at some point in your life you have most probably come across one or more of these things. Now, I know for me, when I was little and I paged through some magazines, I might have come across a quiz that would tell me about, I don't know, teenage girls, my love life, or what lipstick color works best for me, or whatever, right? So there's these little quizzes, and of course, we want to know more, and we fill them in, we get an answer, and it's like, yeah, okay, this is interesting. Or maybe it's sort of like, yeah, not so interesting. And that might have been the start of your journey as well, or it might not have been. You might have only found some personality assessment or some assessment of some sort a little bit later in life, not being a teenage girl. You might have been a teenage boy and not really interested in assessments of any sorts. Who knows, maybe a sport one, but other than that, not much else. And we come across it during our work life. So typically, especially as we are moving into leadership roles, we find that organizations really would like to understand who and what it is that they are placing within a role, and typically how this person react to certain things. So we have psychometric tests, and we have skill tests, and we have some form of personality type of tests that we go through to see whether, are we a fit for whatever position it is that we are applying for or where we want to move into. Now, this also is different from company to company. Some of them do them, some of them don't. I know of quite a few places where I went into new positions and they did them, and I also had a few where they didn't do anything. So it is all very relative depending on where it is that we move to. And in saying that, we can still do them for ourselves. the real thing is, why do we even want to do this? Right? Why do we want to take any sort of test that can reveal anything about us? And is it almost similar to, I don't know, the way some people feel about astrology? It is written in the stars, and yeah, I don't really feel that that is something that is relevant to me, so I don't even do it. And for others, it's written in the stars and they live by it every single day. So how does this thing called personality tests work? Now, there has been quite a bit of research within this space, and some of the tests are research-based, and some of the tests are similar to the ones that I took when I was little, that were in the magazines to tell me what sort of lip shade works for me or not. So really understanding which type of test it is that we're doing, and also the other thing that's really important about personality tests in general is understanding that no one test can pinpoint us as an individual human being exactly. There will be things that resonate. There will be things that we sort of go, yes, this feels like me. And understanding that we are all on a spectrum. So when I say that we are all on a spectrum, all the things that we test normally go from one extreme to another extreme and something in between. So because we have such a wide range, we can be anywhere on that continuum. And depending on the day that we are taking the test, the exact experience or environment that we are thinking of while we are taking the test, all of these different things will have an impact on the results or the outcome of the test. Now, there's most probably going to be a whole bunch of stuff where it feels right. It feels like me. It feels like this is an easy thing for me to be doing. And typically, those things will normally, in all the tests we take, come out as a pattern of sorts. Now, the other fun thing about this is that we can change it. We can, if we want to, change any part or parts of the way that we be in the world. And that is part of what we can do as well. So for me personally, the tests that I am interested in a little bit more is the ones with some sort of scientific backing to them. So they have a lot more rigor within their testing, and there is some general alliance that they have found between all of us human beings that makes up the different components of these tests. Now, they also differ. So, for instance, if you are not familiar with, you can always go and have a look. There's within the positive psychology science, there's a test that you can access from the VIA website. So it's VIA. VIA is the website or the organization. And they have a free test that you can take to look at. So what that test specifically looks at is our 24 virtues as human beings. So all human beings, they have found within their research, has these 24 virtues, right? So there's a total of 24. And of course, we all know that all 24 cannot be 100% present all of the time. We will use some of them more than others. So basically, what the test does is it shows us which ones we are using the most of the time and which ones we are really well practiced in using. Now, because there's 24 of them, and you all know how the alphabet works, we have 25 letters and we can make multiple words and sentences from those. Now, exactly the same with these virtues. There's 24 of them and we can literally combine them in any way. And for each person, it is going to be different. So yes, we all have the same building blocks, but no, the way that the building block shows up is not the same. So we all have this individual expression of these 24 different virtues. So that's one of the places that if I were to suggest any tests, that would be one I would suggest. And there's a reason I would suggest this. Typically, if I think about the VIA strengths test, what it looks at is the things that helps us in life to really thrive. It's part of positive psychology. So it looks at the elements that helps us to thrive, that helps us to be happy in our environment and live with purpose. So if I want to understand more around what helps me to thrive, how I can live with purpose, what I need in my environment to help me be a happy, healthy human being, that's the test I will take. If I want to know how to do something quite different, then that might not be the right test for me. So that's another thing to take into consideration with all these different types of tests. They have been developed or researched in a specific area and for a specific reason. So looking at what the base reasoning was for the development also makes it easier for us to see how it might be applicable within any space that we are operating. Another one that also has a lot of research rigor applied to it is the ocean or the Big Five assessment. So with the ocean or the Big Five assessment, we went through that in one of our other series. And what we look at in that space is looking at how open we are as a human being. So when we speak about open, we really looking at how easy it is for us to interact with new experiences. So if I enjoy having new experiences, I enjoy adventure, I enjoy new things in my environment constantly, I will be high open. If, however, I enjoy more traditional things, I don't really like change all that much. I have a tendency to be very routine orientated and enjoy going to the same restaurant, ordering exactly the same meal from preferably exactly the same waiter, then that would place me to a lot more of the other side of that open spectrum. So as I said, we all have that spectrum of where we can either be on the one side, the other side, or somewhere in between, right? So it's a bit of a sliding scale. The next piece within our Big Five or ocean, after the O, is the C, which is conscientious. And what we look at when we think about conscientious is really around our detail orientation. So thinking of some people look at the forest, so they have a high level view, They have a lot more of a strategic approach. They do not really go into a lot of detail. They have a plan, a vision, and that's the piece that they work with. If we take that person and we put them in a position where they need to work with detail-orientated things every single day, it will frustrate the crap out of them. So we don't want to be doing that. They don't want to be doing that. It might be that they are not that high on the conscientious scale in the sense of being very broad thinking. So it might be that they're a little bit more to the middle and they can tolerate some form of detailed work. And then we get individuals where for them, we need detail. They really, really need all the finer details. When we give them a project plan, it is not going to be an overview once they're finished with it. They're going to have each and every task planned out with times and resources and everything allocated to it that we need to actually perform this project. So understanding where it is that we fit within that scale makes it a lot easier for us to understand what sort of environment or what sort of job it is that will fit us better than another. Now, the next one on our ocean scale is the E. Now, E is for extroversion. Now, when we think on the extroversion scale, we have introverts, we have extroverts, and then we have the middle, and that's actually called ambiverts. So when we look at that scale, there's a lot of people that do fall within that ambivert portion. Now, they might not be exactly in the middle. They might fall a little bit more to introvert or a little bit more to the extrovert side. And that will also change the way that their ambivertness shows up. Then we also have individuals that's on either side of those ends. So some people are very, very, very close to the end of the introvert scale. And some people are very, very, very close to the end of the extrovert scale. If you're going to take those two individuals and put them in one team, they will in all likelihood frustrate each other no end. And the reason for it is because their energy management is different. The thing to take into consideration when we're looking at the introvert-extrovert scale is really thinking about the way that we manage our own energy. Now, when we are more towards the extrovert side of the scale, we get energy from interactions, from people around us, from brainstorming, from being with friends, from having individuals around us that we can interact with. And that gives us energy. That livens us up. It's almost like when we have a kettle and we put it into the plug at the wall and switch it on. For the extroverted person, they're drawing their energy from that bigger network. When we are introverts, we have a tendency to get our energy from being on our own. So we need nice, quiet environments for ourselves. We don't need a lot of human interaction. I'm not saying no human interaction, not a lot of. So in general, for most introverts, they feel a lot safer and a lot more comfortable doing work by themselves or with possibly one other person. Now, when they work with the one other person, in all likelihood, they also might not want to work with the person the whole day, because that might overload the amount of human interaction that they are getting. Now, again, thinking of these two extremes, of course, we have most of us are somewhere in between. So we're not necessarily at the very, very opposite extremes. But the easiest way to demonstrate this is if we have these two people at the extremes and we bring them together in one area, and we have an open plan work environment, for instance, the extrovert is going to love it because there's loads of places for them to actually interact with other people. Whereas, and of course, then gaining their energy, right? So the way that they manage the energy is they're gaining a lot from it. Whereas with the introvert, an open space, a working environment will be very, very frustrating because they won't be able to concentrate and they'll be giving out energy all the time. So that is not the ideal working environment for them. For them, they will need a space where either it's an enclosed office or they're able to move away from the rest of the group so that they can work on their own. That is a much better way for them to do it. The next one in our ocean is the A, which is agreeableness. When we think about agreeableness, so if we are high agreeable, it means that we will typically say yes first and then think about it and then come to the conclusion that maybe we couldn't do what we said yes to and feel guilty about then going back on our word. So that is something that for agreeable people, they do have a struggle with that on that side. And of course, if on the scale we are very low agreeable, it means that we find it really easy to say no first. And typically what we will find with these people is they will say no first and then later on come back and say, you know what, I thought about it and yeah, that's fine. I can help you with the project or we can do this thing, whatever the case might be. So the very first response would be a no versus a very high agreeable person. Their very first response will be a yes. So understanding that about ourselves, that self-awareness piece is really important because it also helps us to understand what it is that we need for our boundaries. So for a low agreeable person, for their boundaries, because they already say no to most of the stuff, it means that their overwhelm factor is not necessarily going to be as high for any social responsibility that they feel. However, for our very high agreeable people, their social responsibility might cause them to go into some form of overwhelm because they have a tendency to say yes first and then come to the conclusion that maybe I'm not going to have enough time to do the thing that I need to be doing or that I just said yes to, or even that I don't even want to be doing it, and then go into all sorts of not so positive necessarily self-talk. So it's really good to understand, especially if we are very high agreeable, how to put proper boundaries in place for ourselves to give us space in order to not land ourselves in unnecessarily muddly areas. And then on our ocean scale, the very last one that we have is the N, which is neuroticism. And when we think about the neuroticism, it's really around it's almost the worry factor that we have. So thinking about people that worry about anything and everything, and they they almost worry constantly or very, very easily. So if something were to happen, they will immediately go into worry mode or the risk mode. Whereas people that's on the other side of neuroticism, they're very low in their neuroticism, they have a tendency to almost not worry about stuff. They have this air of, well, whatever will be, and everything is good, and, well, the sky can fall, and that's fine too. I don't have to really look at it at all. So, as you can see, both of these has some positives, and both of these also have some negatives. So when I am very high neurotic and I have a tendency to worry about and see every single little risk that's out there, the likelihood of me doing really well in a risk or regulatory, my tongue, sort of environment is improved. So the likelihood of me going to do risk assessments and looking at anything that can possibly go wrong, I am focused on it as an individual already, because that's the place where my neuroticism scale is. However, if my neuroticism scale is on the other side and I'm really not worried about anything, and, well, the sky can fall and that's going to be fine too, a risk type of environment where I need to do risk assessments and make sure that everybody is safe and do all of that sort of thing might not be the greatest place for me to be, because I will definitely not identify all the risks that is possible. And because I miss most of them, I will also not be worried about any of them. So I'm not really helping that situation. On the other hand, when there is something that goes horribly wrong, typically these type of people do have a tendency to think on their feet. So we do need both of the types, and understanding ourselves well enough so that we can position ourselves in a place where we can bring the gift of who and what we are to our situation, and understanding how to do that. So going through this ocean was a way of helping demonstrate the importance of our own self-awareness. If we are aware of exactly what sort of things we are drawn to more, what makes us happy, how our work environment affects our energy levels, how we typically think and operate, it makes it easier for us to set ourselves up for success by going into environments where we can do things we are already good at. So being a fish in water instead of trying to climb a tree when we are a fish, because literally that's best suited for the monkey. And with that, I am hoping that you will be enjoying some wonderful self-reflection and getting to know yourself a little bit more in your own self-awareness to discover what the environments are in which you operate best. Until next time, here at USA Global TV and Radio, from me, Mariska du Preez, and the Talking Heads team, see you.